Eric and Steve, thank you. For more on this right now, Brandon Judd joins us. He's the president of the National Border Patrol Council. Brandon, thanks for being here. Now, before I get your take on how the president is handling this payout controversy, I want to know, is there a lesson about immigration policy and procedure that's being overlooked? I mean, while cracking down on illegal immigration, separating children from parents can't happen again, or we end up trying to ward off lawsuits. I mean, is there a takeaway? What is it?
This is a really simple issue and can be solved overnight. It can be solved with the striking of a pen. The problem is anytime we release people into the United States pending a hearing that they're not going to show up to, we're going to have tons of people cross our borders illegally. It's that magnet that draws people here, and as long as that magnet exists, people are going to continue to come. If we hold people in custody pending a deportation or asylum hearing, people stop coming. That was proven under the migrant protection protocols. This administration, unfortunately, did away with everything that President Trump did that was, in fact, beneficial to border security. And because they did away with all of that, they've opened the floodgates, and we're now in the biggest crisis we've ever seen as far as border security goes.
So given that some of the things that former President Trump did were effective, I was just asking you about what wasn't effective, and that was the separation of migrant families. But let me continue so you can finish your thoughts on that. I mean, there obviously needs to be a clear message that you do not get a payday if you cross the border illegally. However, if you disagree with the $450,000 payment or whatever it's going to be to separated migrants, should the U.S. make good on what turned out to be a disastrous deterrent?
That's going to be for the courts to decide. But let's be clear, we wouldn't even be discussing this if President Biden wouldn't have called the report garbage several days ago. All he had to do was be forthcoming to the American public, and he wasn't forthcoming to them. The dollar amount might be a little bit different, but the fact remains they are in discussions for payments to these families, and President Biden could have come out and he could have told the American public that, and he didn't.
And so, you know, that's my point. I guess they're trying to ward off lawsuits. So that's what I'm asking you. You're an expert on this as a president of the National Border Patrol Council. How do you avoid getting here in the first place?
Yeah, I'm concerned with anything that this administration says right now simply because they haven't been forthcoming. They're not telling the American public how many people are being released into the United States. They're not telling the American public how many people are crossing the border illegally. They're not telling the American public how many of these people that we take into custody every single day have criminal records. They're not forthcoming with the American public. And the American public has a right to know exactly what is happening. And until this administration is, in fact, forthcoming with all those things, we have reason to be skeptical on anything that they tell us as it pertains to border security. And these payouts to these families, these family separations, let's be clear, families get separated in the United States all the time. If I shoplift in Target and I have a child with me and an officer takes me into custody, they're going to take that child away from me for that period of time. The reunification process has to take place, and a lot of these families that haven't been reunified with their children, they haven't come forward to claim those children. So there's a lot to this that just isn't being reported properly, and the mainstream media continues to try to make this an issue and point the finger at President Trump, when in reality, when we look at his policies, he drove illegal immigration to 45-year lows. We were able to go after the criminal cartels, go after the criminality, try to stop the drugs from coming into the United States because the illegal immigration were driven to 45-year lows. Now we have this explosion, and it's simply caused by Biden policies.
So listen, you're right. It's definitely a complex situation. And so before we go, I want to ask you, is the Trump administration's stay in Mexico policy the answer? Are there other layers needed to fortify sustainable closure to illegal border crossings?
It's one of the answers. The clear answer is simply, you must hold people in custody pending any sort of immigration proceeding, whether that's asylum, whether that's deportation. They must be held in custody. If we release them, if the catch and release program is perpetuated, we're going to see illegal immigration explode. That's exactly what has happened.
And do we have the resources to do that very thing you're saying?
We do. We do. Arthur, what we saw under the migrant protection protocols, everybody's going to say, well, it costs too much money to hold people in custody. The moment you start doing that, people stop coming. That was proven under the migrant protection protocols. So all we have to do is hold the initial people that cross the border illegally, hold them in custody. Now people aren't going to be willing to give cartels thousands of dollars if they know that they're going to be deported back to their country. They're going to stop coming. So it's actually going to be a net positive to the federal government as far as money goes, because we're not going to be in the same situation over and over and over again.
You're saying pay the money up front, have the resources to secure the border, or you pay on the back end, which could be worse. Brandon Judd, thank you very much.
Thank you.